Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 114 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. Oh my gosh. You are going to love today's episodes. I know you love the case studies, you love the real life rock stars and rock star we have for you today. Iyabo Agiri, rent to rent rock star extraordinaire, and she's a single mum of a 20-year-old son. She's been running her own HMO management agency since January 2020. I love talking to her. I love her energy. I love her commitment. I love how she's made this happen. She's worked in IT, like many of the rock stars actually, for 25 years, and she's a big sports fan. And you love ticking the Olympics off your bucket list. Welcome to the show, Iyabo Agiri.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm delighted to have you with us because I was saying earlier, a lot of people say, and I think you even said, "Oh, I don't want to come on the show because I only have one property." But what I know from talking to people is that the listeners love to meet people who've just got their first property so they can see, oh, what's working now, and how do people get over their fears. And so I know that the conversation with you today is just going to be so valuable.
Hope
So
so. Mhm.
tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Iyabo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, more importantly, I'm a mum. I know you just mentioned I have a 20-year-old son. So that's the number one in terms of my life and in terms of my achievement. That's I think the biggest achievement. I've worked, as you said, in IT for almost 30 years now. And well, that's been quite a while, obviously. So I've just looked for something different in my life. I think you come to a point in your life, and I wish it happened earlier, but hey ho, you can't turn the clock back. But you come to a point where you're looking around, thinking there's something else that I can do with my life. So after so many years, I just decided to look at something else, and I've always been interested in property. I was one of the avid uh, watchers of TV programs such as Property Lad. I'm not sure if you remember that from way back with
Yeah.
Sarah Beanie. I used to watch that avidly, and also Homes Under the Hammer, which probably everybody else talks about being influenced by those
Mhm,
programs. And I
mhm.
used to watch those programs and think, oh, that's for rich people. I never even knew you could do property as a business. I always thought, oh, these millionaires are going out to buy these old wrecks and do them up, and then they make make a lot of money. I never thought it could ever be me. But then 3 4 years ago, I just decided, as I said, to reevaluate my life and think about where my life was heading. So I just thought, well, you've got an interest in property, you just start doing your research about it. And that's when I started getting on the internet, watching YouTubes. I went to with a friend from work to Samuel Leeds, one of his events, thinking, not really, just to see what was happening. And then I was hearing about all these no money down deals, and I was like, what? I thought for years you had to have lots of money, and I just didn't know. So that just started things off in terms of my learning and getting understanding about property and the property business. Obviously, came across yourselves about your course, and then, as I said, I just took it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love so many things about that. It's very similar, with similar age, I guess. And you
Bit
found
older than
out,
you, I think, just
oh,
slightly.
you're a bit older. Uh, but I love how you call it the YouTubes as well. I call it YouTubes sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but and then when you find out, because I remember, finding out, going to these events and thinking, what
Mm,
is this?
mm, yeah.
What do you mean you're renting properties and renting them out again? Pardon? Say that
Mm,
again.
mm.
So you heard all this. You went to one of some of these events. You joined the Kickstarter program, and tell us what happened next. Because you must have been. I know it's a while since you originally started, and between
Mm.
getting your first deal. So, what I would love to know, because a lot of people have fears that stop them from getting started. So, tell us about your fears before getting started and how you overcame them to get your first deal.
There were a lot of fears. the number one fear was just really falling flat on my face at the start. Just I guess the fear of failure. And I remember way back, I don't know if people know the book. It's by Susan Harris, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Mm,
And that's one of the things, because fear is sometimes, unfortunately, can be a big blocker, a barrier for people. And because I didn't know a lot about it, although I watched a lot of YouTube videos and about people who had, from the get-go, they were successful. I'm still thinking, you're still doubting yourself. You're thinking, I don't know anything about property. I've worked in IT.
mm,
That's my area. I don't know anything. And that was my biggest fear, just falling at the first hurdle. I mean,
yeah.
even something as basic as setting up your own company,
Yes.
and what you need to do, which is where your Kickstarter program helped, because
Mm,
step by step, it just took you through what you needed to do. And I needed that.
mhm,
And obviously yourself, Stephanie, and Nikki, obviously you've obviously been through, and I've read your book as well, you've obviously been through, you
mhm,
obviously started from a point where you didn't know anything, and you possibly felt the
mhm.
fear as well to take
Yeah.
the first step. And the
Yeah.
fact that you'd experienced it and you'd got past that, that was a brilliant example for me to show me that I could do the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And I think it really helps as well. And so many people say this, and well, that it really helps to see another Black woman doing it. So
mm.
I know that seeing you today and hearing you on the podcast will inspire other Black women to get started, other people in general, of course, but
Yeah.
especially there's something about it, isn't there, where you think it's not for you, and partly it's tied in to this isn't something Black women do.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a family where neither of my parents owned property. My dad did at a later stage,
Mm,
but we grew up in a council flat essentially,
mhm.
and you just grew up thinking that's all you could do, just
Yeah,
rent a
yeah.
council flat. And neither of my parents had any kind of aspirations to buy a property, so I didn't have any kind of benchmark or any example to look at, certainly
Mhm,
not from my parents' side. And obviously they did the best they could under the circumstances,
mhm,
but obviously back then, you didn't have the knowledge you have now. So I was just so grateful to be able to have the knowledge, to be able to seek out the information, and to learn about property, and know that, whether you're black, you're white, whatever age you are,
mhm.
the possibilities are there as long as you take that first step and get the knowledge. Mm,
Mm.
mhm.
Great, great, great answer.
Mm.
So tell us all about your first deal. How did you find it? What was it? Tell us how first.
Oh, how? Yeah. It wasn't easy. I have to say that. Anyone who thinks it's easy, it's not. It's obviously once you've done the training, the next bit is taking action. So I was armed with all this knowledge, the direct to landlord, doing the letters, going to agents, speaking to agents, calling them. And obviously with the agent side of things, because of the pandemic, it was difficult. And the area that I'm based in Southeast London. When I spoke to a lot of agents, unfortunately, the feedback I was getting wasn't particularly positive. I mean, a
Mm,
lot of them know about rent to rent, and a lot of them have these preconceived about ideas about rent to rent. But because I was quite a newbie, although I'd had the training, it was still difficult getting around those objections from agents.
mm,
But so I focused more on direct to landlord, and my first deal I got via Spare Room, and it's a really strange story, that one. I just contacted who I thought was a landlord. I spoke to the landlord's wife, and she said, "Oh yeah, come along to a viewing. There's a viewing later on today." She gave me the address. So I turned up at the viewing, and there was quite a number of people there. Different people with kids. And I'm thinking, is this right? I
mhm,
mean, the property looked great. And then after about half an hour wait, with all this crowd of people, the landlord turned up, and I explained what I was there for, and he said, "Oh, this is a single let." And I thought, oh, obviously the wife misunderstood what I was looking for, or what I wanted to view. And he said, "Oh, if you wait half an hour, I've got a HMO. It's not that far down. It's about 5 minutes drive from here." if we wait half an hour while I deal with these, these viewers, I can meet you back at this HMO that, I just want I'm looking for someone to manage. I said, great. So he gave me the address. I drove around there. Property looked great. He turned up, showed me around, and I couldn't believe it. It was newly refurbished, newly painted. It just looked fantastic, all en suite, 6 bedrooms. And I'm thinking, God, I want this. I really want this. So he said, "Oh, so he was a very busy landlord, and he was looking at different other strategies. He was looking more to developing flats. So he said, okay, his father-in-law. He put me in touch with his father-in-law just to deal with all the negotiations around the deal, because his father-in-law was a HMO landlord up north. So I had lots of discussions with the father-in-law. He had lots of questions for me. Fortunately, because of all the training and the mentorship, I was able to answer the questions. And I must have done something right, because at the end of the day, they said, yes, we'll take you on, with my first deal, which was a lovely, lovely surprise. And I was really pleased. And obviously, I was doing something right in terms of my responses. Yeah, we took it from there, drafted, got the contract ready, signed the contract, and then the hard work really started, because it was an empty property. So the landlord bought all the furnishes, the beds, mattresses, the wardrobes, a lot for all the rooms. And it was just then for me to go in, dress one of the rooms, ready to get marketing on the spare room, which I did. So we marketed it for working professionals, and I couldn't believe the response. I was expecting, one or two. I think within a couple of weeks, I got about 50
Wow.
people, inquiring, wanting to view. So that was very time consuming. I think that's one of the things that once I developed my portfolio more, that I'd like to hand off to someone else to do, because viewings are very, very time consuming. It's really enjoyable speaking to people, but it's very, very time consuming. So that's one of the things that I'd advise people. And the good thing is I have things like checklists from your program. So there's a checklist of things to ask people. So I was prepared. So that really was helpful. So we got 6 really good working professional tenants, 3 females, 3 males, and it's really going well, very well. They're all paying rent, they're all, they're very happy with the accommodation. I'm always on hand if there's any issues they want to talk to me about. But yeah, that's my first deal, so it's gone very well.
I love it because
Mm,
it's this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, because we're recording this at the beginning of 2022, and what I love is the idea that your future is your property.
mm,
You are the only one who can build on it. Well, actually, you can draft other people in to build on it.
mm,
But you certainly design it, and you designed it because you put that idea in your mind. You went from thinking, I can't do property. Property wasn't even in your radar, to thinking I could do property. I might do property. Oh my gosh, I am doing property. You created it all. And you didn't stop when there was, you didn't get results straight away. And you carried on and you carried on.
Exactly. Yeah. All the times I was talking to agents and I was saying, the phone put down on me, or people saying, oh, that's illegal. We don't do that. The landlord won't want to listen to what you're saying. But ultimately, I found a landlord who was really busy. He just didn't want to self manage. And he'd had a previous agent who wasn't particularly happy with. And he was just looking for someone to help him to manage his property so he can do other stuff. And I would say if you can find landlords like that, it's always finding solutions for people, you know, that have a problem or a challenge. If you can find those sort of people, it really is a bonus, and I think it will set you up in the right way. Mm,
And actually, I was saying in the last few episodes where I was reviewing the years, one of the biggest lessons from HMO Heaven, which is our rent to rent business, is landlords really struggle to find that consistent long-term HMO management service.
mm,
So as well as we're looking for them, they're looking for us,
yeah,
you know,
indeed.
and that was so fortuitous. You put yourself out there. You were at that viewing with loads of other people. You probably thought, well, I'm not going to get this. There's so many people here.
Mm,
But you then took the initiative because some people may have gone there, seen everybody else, and just left.
yeah.
You
I was
stayed there.
I was tempted to leave when I thought this isn't right. People turning up with little kids. I'm thinking this can't be right. And then the landlord turns up and said, this is a single, like, it's for family. So I think there was obviously a miscommunication there. He said, but I do have a HMO. I could have said, well, I'll go home and I'm fed up. But I said, no, I'll go to view that HMO. He said, if you hang around for 20, 30 minutes, I can meet you there. And I thought, wow, what are the chances of that happening? And the good thing is he knows other landlords who are HMO landlords. So he said, you do a good job on this property, I can recommend you to other landlords. you know yeah, and that's where growth comes. Do a good job, someone else recommends you to someone else, and that's how you build up.
Ah,
Yeah. Mm,
so many important lessons, Iyabo. It's
mm,
it's what we
mm,
always say, win, win, win. It's a win for you. You've got this incredible business now. You're off the ground. You've got your one property, and it's an amazing property. 6 bed, newly refurbished, all en suite. You couldn't ask for more.
yeah.
And you're doing a good job, and you'll get referrals to other properties to grow your business.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about now is getting your first deal, negotiation. How did you find was there negotiation on the rent?
Not really. What I did is I just actually looked at the market rent in the area,
Mhm.
and what I forgot to say is the property wasn't completely empty. There was one tenant there, and that tenant was brought in by the landlord. But I think he was charging her rent that was a little bit below the market rent for the area.
Mm.
Um, and I thought to myself, I think the rent can be a little bit more per room. So I just put it out there. I mean, I went on to spare rooms. I did my advert. I used, a lot of the advice and templates from your course and from other courses, and I just did the ad. And I thought, well, I did my research on spare rooms. You can do some analysis in terms of what the ceiling rent is for specific areas, and I just targeted. Um, and what I thought was, because I know with his existing tenant, um, that there was an agent, but I don't think the agent was doing as much around the customer service side of things. Um, I think they were doing the barest minimum in terms of taking care of the property. And I think if you justify the slight increase by saying, well, I'm going to add additional features that add value. So I made sure the Wi-Fi was upgraded, for example. I put in things like Netflix account, just additional features which the tenant would think, wow, yeah, okay, it's worth the extra £50 or £100 or whatever. And I also, when I was doing the viewings in particular, because the property was about a 5 minute drive from where I live, so I
Mhm.
used that as a good selling point. I just basically said, if there's any issues, I'm just 5 minutes drive away. A lot of these agents are, miles away. They have to go through, don't know if you know London traffic as it is. It would take a long while. I said, I'm just 5 minutes drive away. I can be there in a shot to deal with whatever issues. So people were quite impressed with that, I think. Very much hands-on in terms of what I could do to help and how I could, just make sure the properties run very well and obviously provide a good service.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And do you know what's coming across, Iyabo? This is what I talk about, and people don't believe me. They say, "Well, what words do you say to agents? What words do you say to landlords?" And I mean, we do give you all that, but the
Mm,
most important thing is to come across just who you are. Let it come across. When I'm talking to you, it just shines through how much you care about, the housemates,
mm,
the landlord, the property, and when you're talking to anybody they can feel that as well. So the
mm,
landlord could sense, if you didn't come across like you come across, he wouldn't have said to you, oh, do you want to come around to see my HMO?
mm. Yeah, I think the most important thing is just be genuine, just be who you are, and with my tenants, I've got 6 tenants at the moment, and I'm totally transparent with them. I keep the communication channels open. And it was funny because I was speaking to one of the tenants the other day, and she was saying that she was saying to someone else, they were amazed at how fast I respond. If someone contacts me, I try to respond as quickly as possible. And if I can't respond as quickly as possible, I make a commitment to say when I can get there, when I can do something. I don't say, oh, maybe, you know, in 2 weeks or whatever. I'm very specific around that. And I think
Mm,
where you have that type of approach, people trust you more. And if
mm,
you step up and say, if you say, I'm going to be there in an hour or 2 hours, and you're there, people are more likely to trust you. You
mm.
know, trust that you can do. You know, you can step up and do what you commit to do. Yeah.
I love it. So
Mhm.
tell us, next thing that people often worry about is, oh, it's going to cost me so much to start up. And maybe it did. What were your startup costs?
They weren't that great. I mean, as I said before, the property was newly refurbished, which was
Mhm.
fantastic, newly painted. All the en suites were really good. They were very clean, very tidy. The landlord also bought new furniture, so wardrobes, beds, mattress, the works. So initially, the only cost I had to buy, I mean, I just went to IKEA and some other places just to dress a room so that I could actually market it on Spare Room. So, and the good thing about that is I can reuse that. I mean, that's the equipment I've purchased to dress. And what I did is I got a professional, and what I will say, use a professional photographer as well, because I initially I thought, oh, I'll just get my iPhone or I'll borrow my son's iPhone and take some photos. But when I bought in this photographer, I think it was one of the best investments I've ever made because his photos were fantastic,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that people pointed out who, when they came to view the property, the pictures in Spare Room actually reflected what they actually saw. Because so many of them actually said, oh, they saw other properties on Spare Room, in Spare Rooms. And when they turned up, it was such a big letdown, big disappointment. But a lot of people were pleasantly surprised that what they saw, in the photos actually turned out to be what was in the, what was at the viewing.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was a really good investment. If that's a top tip for people, get someone professional who knows who knows how to take photos to do the photos.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Amazing.
yeah, so some of my initial costs. I mean, that wasn't a heck of a lot. I mean, maybe what's initially not more than £300 to make sure everything's dressed. So the only sort of other costs were upgrading the Wi-Fi. You know, there's initial setup cost, but there's an ongoing cost that goes towards, you put into your deal analyzer. Um, and just little things like I noticed it's with the kitchen, and that's another thing that people need to watch out. I thought to myself, there's 6 tenants here, but I thought there's not enough freezer space here. So,
Mm,
and I thought to myself, this is going to be a problem. Now, initially, when we got tenants in, it wasn't when we got 2, 3 tenants, not too bad. Obviously, the first ones that came, they bagged the best cupboards and the space in the freezer. But when we got to the fifth and sixth, I could see it was being a problem. So I just got an under counter freezer. When they pointed it out to me, I got a freezer for them, and that didn't cost much. I mean, it wasn't I didn't go for a brand new one. I got a nearly new
mhm.
freezer, very good. It was second hand, very, but not at a full price. And that was what, maybe £100, not more than that. So things like that, it's just some
So you
additional
spent
things. Mm.
about £500, and did you need to did you pay the first month's rent in advance to the landlord?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and obviously there's things like I didn't pay a deposit, but I paid deposit insurance.
Hmm.
So to be fair, I mean the major costs I would say for me at the start were the deposit insurance and the first rent to the landlord. So beyond that, there wasn't a huge amount of money. So the rent to the landlord was about 200. That was a guaranteed rent.
2,000.
Just over 2,000, beg your pardon. Wish it was
200 would
200.
have been good.
Yeah, just over 2,000. Yeah, the deposit insurance, I think, was about 400 for the year. I think, or something like that. So yeah, so
So
mm,
basically, you had about £900, and then you've got 2,000, which obviously you're going to get back with the rents.
mm,
So it was less than £1,000 in terms of the dressing and the insurance instead of a deposit. And then you had £2,000 you paid for the rent, which you had coming back to you
mm,
through the rent. So it didn't take you long to make your money back.
no,
And
not at all.
drum roll, please. What was the cash flow on that first one?
Oh, the first one, the first month, I think it was
No,
800.
on 800. Will it
Yeah,
be 800 going forwards? Because the first month might have been different because you didn't have.
yeah, yeah. It will because of the way the contract's structured. The landlord has at certain periods is asked for a slightly more guaranteed rent, which is what I've agreed to. So I would say at a minimum 700. But using your really good deal analyzer, which is brilliant by the way, and I always use it for my deal analysis, where you count the voids and your maintenance and management costs. You know, I've put everything into the deal analyzer, and what I've worked it out is a minimum 700 with a potential going up to 900.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
900
yes.
a month. Yeah. Mm,
Well, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about where we put this buffer in management, maintenance, and voids. Even though we're self-managing, we put a bit of buffer in each of those so
mm,
that we know that at the worst it's going to be 700, and at the most, or it's going to be around 900. So
yeah. Hmm.
brilliant deal, and it's great to have that first property on board. And I'm so pleased that you came on and talk about it, because I know it'll be an inspiration for so many people. If you're listening and you've enjoyed today's episode, please go to renttorentsuccess.com/114 for episode 114, and you'll go to the webpage, and you'll see at the bottom you can comment. So do say hi and congratulations to Iyabo if you've enjoyed her story today. So Iyabo, I wanted to ask you about, what are your secrets to success in getting your first deal?
Oh, right. Perseverance, number one. You know,
Mm,
just keep going. You know,
mm,
I think I always think about a quote by someone called Henry Ford. I mean, he was one of the guys who, well, he was the sort of initial automobile creator, producer, manufacturer, and he says that um, there's no such thing as failure. He said, failure is the opportunity to begin again, but more intelligently. Because
ah,
yeah, because there could be so many points where you're thinking, this is not working. I'm failing
mm,
badly. You know, it's not failure, it's feedback. Just learn from what's not gone right for you and then take action, pivot, change the way you're doing things, and you will get there. Because there were so many points I could have just given up, you know, way back when I was looking at service accommodation and the pandemic hit, and I thought, oh no, this is not for me. Go
yeah,
back to your doing your corporate job, you
yeah,
know, going in, getting on the train 9 to 5, you
yeah.
know, listening to all sorts of, stuff about management, like you're not controlling your own destiny, your own life, your own time. But I
Mm.
thought, look, just pivot. And I looked at HMOs, and I could have just given up when the pandemic hit and thought it's not working for me.
Yeah.
But you just it's the perseverance. And another thing is really think about your tenant. Think about and that's one of the things that Jamie and Steve have taught me. They don't even think about tenants as tenants. They think of them as clients.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, they're buying a service from you. Yeah, you
mm,
have to remember that. They're
mm,
paying for a service. So
mm,
just like Marks and Spencers, when you walk into Marks and Spencers, they think about the customer because they know if they treat their customers badly, they're not coming back into that store again. So you
mm,
need to think about people as clients and treat them with respect. And I've been fortunate enough because of my career in IT, where the focus has been always on providing a good service, and that is always front of my mind when I deal with my clients. The 6 clients I've got at the moment, my focus is on making sure that they get good value for the rent they pay. And it
Yeah.
really frustrates me when I see landlords who don't have that attitude. It's just take the money and that's it. You've got to look after, your
Yeah.
clients. Yeah. I have a son at the moment. He's at university. He's staying in the HMO. God
Yeah.
forbid if he was there and there was no fire doors or something went wrong that put him at risk. I
Yeah.
try to use that man's mindset when I deal with tenants as well. Think about their safety, think about their comfort. It's their home. If you were living there, you wouldn't want to live in a place that could endanger your life or doesn't meet the standards. Yeah. Mm,
No,
mm,
absolutely.
mm,
And I know that it is important as well, the way you think, because I know
mm.
that a lot of people either in your situation, they've been doing IT for 25 years. They may not even have started, never mind persevered and been successful in securing such a great deal. So, what would you say there that you've noticed about your mindset? Have you noticed any changes or anything?
Yeah, I think not just settling. Yeah, not just settling for the way things are. Because I think particularly when you work in a corporate job for so long, you just get to your mindset is just settling. Oh, I go into work, I get my cup of tea, get my coffee, speak to my manager, do this, and it's almost like you're sleepwalking. You know, you're not challenging yourself. And the good thing about property and running the property business is you can't think like that. The mindset has to be, um, you know, thinking ahead, thinking about the property, thinking about the landlord, thinking about your tenants, and you just need to have that thought process to get the best you can out of the property for your tenants. So I find it quite a challenge and it's quite an enjoyable challenge because that is the main focus. You have to have the right mindset. And it's not always a fixed mindset, which I think previously in my job, it was always very much fixed. This is how we do it every day. You need to have that flexibility around your thinking as well. Because without that flexibility, how are you going to change things? How are you going to improve? So I
Yeah.
think that's the importance. And above all, keep the communication open. Keep listening. I think the really important thing is always to listen because that's where you pick up things to improve things. And whenever the tenants speak to me about anything, I'm always really attentive about what they're talking because although sometimes, unfortunately, some tenants and what I've found is they're not always upfront because I don't know whether it's a fear about oh I don't want to bother the agent or the landlord, or they just think, oh, it might, put my tenancy in jeopardy. That's not the case. I always say to the tenants I deal with, be very open because I'd rather get an understanding up front about what the issues are now before they become anything serious in the future. I can then do something about it now. So I
Mm.
think keeping that communication, listening and keeping the communication channels open are really important.
Yes,
Mm,
such good
mm,
advice.
mm,
I love what you were saying there. Before you were just coasting, but
mm,
now you're always thinking ahead about serving your customers, serving
mm,
your landlords, growing your business now
yeah.
that you've
Mm.
got the first property. So if there are people who are listening, Iyabo, and they're maybe in the situation you were in before, where they've been thinking about getting started in rent to rent, or maybe they've taken some action, but they haven't seen success yet, what advice would you give to them?
Just keep going, just keep going, but never stop learning as well because I think even probably for yourself maybe Stephanie as well, you don't
Yeah.
stop learning. You're every day you're learning something new.
Mhm,
And what I would say is just persevere. There's
mhm.
always something if you take action. There's always the strong possibility that you will find success. um, and don't get too disheartened. I mean, the amount of agents who just basically said, not interested, we're not interested, we're not interested. Although I didn't get my first deal for an agent, you've had that conversation. And with
Yeah.
each conversation, you learn something different.
Yeah.
Even with your script in your program, You know, when you get on the phone and you're actually talking, everything goes out the window. You forget everything, and it all comes out as mumbo jumbo. And a few times I put the phone down. I thought, what did I say there? That was ridiculous. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you learn and you think back and think, well, I could have said that differently. So the next time you're on the phone, you change it. You
Yeah.
see. So as I said before about failure, it's not failure, it's feedback, and it
Yeah.
just gives you the impetus to change something so you can do it better next time. So that's all I would say. Don't get too disheartened. Try and learn where things have not gone quite right for you. They may not have got quite right, gone quite right, but just try and look at the areas you could improve, and next time it'll be a lot better. You know, and you will get the success.
Can I ask you a question then? Did you
Mhm.
always know that you would do it?
What the property
Get
side
your first
business?
deal?
Yeah, I knew I did because I'd invested so much time. I think initially where I was falling down was around time management because obviously I'm still working full time.
Yeah.
I've got a son. I'm a carer as well of my mum. So once I doubled down in terms of my time and how I managed my time, I always knew I could do it because once I managed my time better, so I could take more effective action, I knew I could do it in the end. It was just the time management side of things for me.
I'm so glad that you've brought that up because so many people, that's their number one reason. Do you know what? I would
Mm,
love to, but I haven't got the time. And you've got a
mm,
20-year-old son. I know he's away at university now, but he wasn't when you started,
mm,
I don't think. And you've got your mum, you're caring for your mum, you've got a
mm,
full-time job, a responsible job. So tell us break it down for us, because there'll be people listening thinking, well, I haven't got enough time. How did you what change did you make that made it possible for you?
it's 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 nothing complex at all. It's just management of your time. You know, just I mean, there are so many tools. I mean, I've got one on my phone at the moment which
What did you
allows me.
do? Tell me what was the difference between
I
before and
Right,
after?
okay, yeah. I just assessed the now in terms of what I was doing. Yeah. So there was a lot of things that you would call time wasters. Yeah. So I don't know. People might sort of spend 2 hours watching television. Do you need to spend 2 hours watching television? Do you? What could you be doing differently? So I think initially just do an assessment of what you are doing on a daily basis, and then just look through that list of things you're doing and thinking, can I just cross that out? You know, instead of watching, I don't know, EastEnders for half an hour. Can I fit that? Do something else? Could I don't know, you know, do some admin on my business or do something else? So I think just to do the initial evaluation of how you spend your time is a starting point, and then
That
you could, yeah. Mhm.
that is such good advice. The other main thing that I think is so interesting, and this is exactly what you're talking about, is look at what do you want to create in the next 3 months or this year,
Mhm.
and are you putting any of your time towards it?
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to with my. I mean, people talk about goals, which is great. But what I did before, what I was doing with goals, I was I tried to make them as high level as possible because what I was doing, I was setting up too many goals. It just got too overwhelming for me, which is it's a bit tempting to do. So I kind of scaled it back a bit. I just targeted what I think are the bigger goals. So I tried to amalgamate a lot of the smaller ones to make them into bigger goals, and I made them smart. I'm not sure if know about the smart um, approach. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. You know, so that's the approach I took. And then on a daily basis, there's certain tasks that I know I need to do, but
Mm,
I plan them the day before. I try to do them
mm,
before I go to bed. I make a list of things I need to do the following day. So I think people get a bit worried about goal setting. They think it's too time consuming. They get a bit overwhelmed, and I did initially. But
mm,
the what I try to do is not to cram in too much
mm,
to the point that I got overwhelmed. And there's no right. What I find is there's no right or wrong with goal setting. It's what really works for you, and
mm,
don't beat yourself up if you don't meet all your goals as well.
mhm,
The
mhm,
fact you've documented it means that you are taking that step to identify you have goals that you want to meet. But the fact that you don't meet them all, don't worry too much about that. That's another tip I'll say.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love everything about it. I love the inspiration. I'm so pleased that you came on because I was saying to you, there's quite a few people who got their first deals in the Kickstarter, and most of them are quite shy and don't want to come on. But because they think that they really should have 10 or 20 or whatever deals before coming on. So I really encourage you, if you're watching and you're listening and you've enjoyed this, do comment on Iyabo's episode. It's at rent2rentsuccess.com/114. And I'll be able to say that to the others. See, lots of people would love to hear from stories of people who've got their first deal. And as we bring it to a close, I know, Iyabo, for a fact, loads of people will be contacting you and will want to get in touch with you, either to congratulate you or to ask questions. And I've got your Instagram on screen now if you're watching on the website. It's at Agiri Property, Agiri Property on Instagram, and also Agiri Property on Facebook. Is that right?
It's HMO Agiri or you can just type Agiri Property. Yeah. Either way will get you through to my Facebook page as well. Yeah.
HMO Agiri on Facebook and
Yeah,
Agiri Property on Instagram.
that's correct. Yeah.
So, as we draw to a close, what words of wisdom would you like to leave people with?
Oh, keep taking action. Yeah, and you will get your first deal. And what I'd also say is once you get your first deal, customer service is key. Yeah, look after. Yeah, just I would say look after your tenants, stroke clients, and your landlord or your owner, whatever. The way to the best of your ability. Yeah. So I always think of, although it's not my own property, I always look at it as my own property.
Mm,
So if you have that mindset, if you see something that's not right, you think, well, I wouldn't want that to happen in my property.
mm,
So I think that's the approach to take as well. Yeah.
mm.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
Well,
mm,
thank you
mm,
so much for joining us. I loved, I'm just going to repeat that. The three things that you said were the secrets of your success. And I totally agree, but I loved what you said was perseverance. That was number one. Just keep going. You also said there's no such thing as failure, it's all feedback. And I love
mm,
that because each time you called the agents, you just kept tweaking and changing. And then you became so good at it that when that moment happened and that landlord asked you to go to see the HMO, you knew exactly what to say.
mm.
And then the final one was you treat all the partners, like the landlords and the tenants or clients as you call them, as your customers,
Yeah,
and you're focusing on a great level of service for them.
that's right. Mm. Spot
So
on. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I think those are the key in terms of values. Yeah, that's and I'll also add as well. Another value for me is growth. You know,
mm, mm,
in terms of development, and I've learned that from my IT background because IT constantly moves, and if
mm,
you don't grow with IT, and I see the same with property, you know, um, keep developing your knowledge, keep learning, from people like yourselves, Stephanie and
mm,
Nikki, keep learning, because if you don't, you, particularly when it comes to HMOs, things change so rapidly, so quickly. It's so
mm,
important to keep growing,
mm,
growing your mind,
mm,
and your experiences as well.
mm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. You're
Mhm.
so right. So thank
Mhm.
you so much, Ayabo. You've
Thank
come,
you.
you've torn it down. I just love the knowledge you dropped today, and you've just got you're such a lovely person. You've got such a lovely way about you. We met up again recently at the Rent to Rent live event
Mhm.
in London at the Tower London Hotel that's hosted by Stephen Cat Curtis. He were lovely,
Mhm.
lovely people. Such a fun event.
Mhm.
And we saw you there and you got your first deal. We saw Luke there. He got his first deal. I'm still Luke hasn't booked in yet. So I'm hoping that Luke is going to be recording an episode as well.
Mhm.
So thanks
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for all your help and all your. I've got your book, by the way, as well, and I say thank you for such an informative and so inspiring book as well. That was, in terms of rent to rent and your experiences with the business, your experience and Nikki's experiences, I found that very, very inspirational, very informative. So I'd like to thank you for that as well.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. You're such a lovely and generous person. So really appreciate that. Really appreciate you being on. And I really appreciate you for
Thank you.
listening and for watching. So that's it for this week, guys. I'll see you next week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. See you soon. Bye for now. Bye.